Hi, this is Will Allen, co-founder and partner of Magarac Ventures, MVP, 12-year NFL veteran, and you're listening to The Game Plan.
All right, Will Allen, thank you so much for joining us on The Game Plan today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, well, I want to get into your story, especially with a big announcement from Magarac Ventures. But before we jump right into that, I just want to talk a little bit about your journey into investing. And I guess, 12 years in the NFL, at what point did you start thinking about what came next for you?
Yeah, I mean, you always think about what's next. Being in the NFL, they tell you that day zero, I should say, the day you get drafted, because NFL stands for not for long, and that's just what it is. It's a cutthroat business. It's probably the most stressful, but most exciting and fun entertainment industry that exists. And you get drafted between the age of 20 and 23 years old. I was 21 when I got drafted, and I had veterans tell me, hey, you take care of your body will take care of you. It's your best asset. You take care of your money will take care of you. And then when you retire, you can do whatever you want. So it's just a catalyst for the future, right? And I think that I always had that mindset, and I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do when I was done playing. I didn't know how long I would play. I just wanted to play as long as I can and accumulate as much wealth as I can. And be conservative. But I would say the investing bug I got that investing bug probably like 2008, right when the housing crisis happened. I got approached with a real estate development deal. And, I was crazy to do it. But I ended up winning. So I was happy about that. But my mind was, I was panicking for like 18 months. Like, oh my God, how's this going to turn out? But it turned out well. I made some good money. I said, oh, this is what it's like. I had no experience. I had no mentors. I had nothing. I mean, I didn't know anything. I mean, I barely know how to buy my house. I mean, I'm just being honest. I was like 24, 25 at the time. But that kind of got me curious, and I wanted to take it, do some more exploration. So that off season, I went to Harvard Business School for Executive Education, and I went to Kellogg School of Management for high growth entrepreneurship. And this was through the NFL. Mm-hmm. So they had opportunities for us to go to Stanford, Wharton, Kellogg, and Harvard. And I chose Harvard, obviously, and then Kellogg because I was very interested in high growth entrepreneurship. And so we got the opportunity to be in front of franchise owners, entrepreneurs that were high growth startups, and also M&A. So we learned M&A, private equity, all three, right? All forms of entrepreneurship. And what resonated with me the most was, this guy who triple mortgaged his house, was on the brink of divorce and losing his family, and then had a $3 billion business. I was just like, yeah, that's kind of like what I like right there. I said being a franchisor of a McDonald's is not something I would want to do. I said learning private equity and acquisition seems pretty cool. Maybe I'll do a little bit of that as well, but it just seems very slow moving. And high growth entrepreneurship in tech and building and startups and investing resonated with me because of sports. That's kind of the world that I knew, and the character that I built up, the callous that I had around being told no, being told that you're not good enough, and able to pull yourself out of the ashes to become this phoenix. I think that was really, really a powerful moment for me. And then when you got professors that were entrepreneurs, like they actually exited businesses and they were like, you got it. You need to be in business. And I was like, okay, what does this mean? Like, okay, what does that mean? But that kind of wet my whistle. And I'm very thankful that I got that executive education to just know to build the confidence, to know that I could do it. But then I still was, you still get stage fright. You step up there, you don't know who to go to. Should I do internships in the off season? Football is super important. I need to concentrate and focus here. So that's kind of what I did. And as deals came by, I mean, I got oil and gas deals. I got alternative, you name it deal flow through me, and I kind of passed on everything. And then one of my buddies in like 2010, 2011 uh, ended up creating a startup, and he was ahead of his time with video. So you think about Cameo now and all these different video applications that exist. He built that in 2010 when when the early stages of smartphone proliferation, global proliferation started to happen, and he was just ahead of his time. He had every celebrity entertainer on there so that you can meet and talk to and get instruction and I was just like, this is so cool, this is so great, but he couldn't monetize it. They ended up selling it, which was great, but he always asked, pick my brain, always had me get athletes online, and I was like, oh man, this is great. Like, I didn't understand the technical side, but I understood the business model, and that's what I really kind of honed into, because I'm not like a super technical person. So, and then from there, I was like, well, what is this tech? What is Facebook doing? What's Instagram? What are these different apps that are, people are using on their smartphones? And, how did I miss this? How did I miss this, like this evolution of technology that's being built right underneath my feet and changing the world? So I wanted to learn more. And that's kind of what started my journey.
There's so much to unpack there, and thanks for sharing that path with us. I want to go back to like one of the very first things you said, which was you had this deal. This first deal that you did is out of the housing crisis. You were like a little nervous maybe about how it was going to perform, but then it actually turned out really well. Do you think, had that deal gone a different way, that maybe it would have changed your trajectory? And maybe a better question is, what gave you the patience after having a successful deal to actually pull back and get smarter versus just saying, oh, this is easy, everything I touch is gold?
Yeah, that's a very, very great question, and thank you for being observant. I think that I didn't know what I didn't know, so I think that's the big part of it. And I'm not risk averse at all. I'm super optimistic. I think I can do everything because I play sports. I think I can accomplish everything until there's absolutely no possible way. So going into the housing crisis, and that's a really a poor character trait. So I'm trying to fix that and be a little bit more pragmatic and add a little bit more
irrational confidence.
Exactly, exactly. And that was at 24 though, right? Now that I'm 38, I realize that that's not the right mentality. But at 24, you couldn't stop me. So and I was like, oh, I got a bunch of cash. I can weather this storm. I'll make money for the next 10 years. I'll be okay. And that was like irrational thinking. But then I felt the pain because I'm literally watching families like holding their hands, crying, getting pushed out of their homes in Florida because they couldn't pay their mortgage. And it dawned on me, like, I am building a real estate like development. Like, I'm a LP in this deal. And I was like, what's going on with this project? Like, it kind of hit me when I seen the realities that I was living in a bubble and the rest of the world was really feeling this pain. So from there, but what made me keep going was the fact that I knew we could weather the storm because we were building during this 18-month period. And when we came out of it, I figured, we will be okay because it wouldn't last forever. I think a lot of times people get panicky and people lose their poise. And I just said, we'll get out of this thing. And luckily we're building during this time and not actually operating. So that was, I guess we had some safeguards in place. And I trusted the team. I trusted the team that was doing. They had years of experience, but no one had ever been through this type of housing crises where the credit was crunched, money was dried up, and everything was expensive. So we made it out, and I got lucky. And I knew then I needed to get some education. I needed some technical expertise. I needed to learn and really be a student of the game, just like I did in football. And because I had that bug, and that's what kind of kept me going and not making me be afraid, because I needed to apply what I did in sports to business, and start from ground zero and then keep building from there.
You know what's interesting about that is I think that mentality a lot of athletes don't realize is so transferable, and I think a lot of people externally don't give athletes credit for that. Which is, I think you think about, okay, somebody might have left college early to go play or whatever it is, but the amount of play, the study that goes into the play that you have to do, right? The study that has to go into every week, you can really apply into anything that you're doing. I am curious though. We're in this era where there are so many resources for athletes, people that want to work with them, managers that want to support them, content that's out there. As you were starting to educate yourself beyond obviously going to school and sort of those courses, were there individuals, were there folks that you reached out to where you were really able to, as you said, immerse yourself into that learning of high growth tech companies?
Yeah, lucky enough, being in sports, you get access to a lot of people, you get access to a lot of deals, you get access to rooms that you really shouldn't be in. People just want to, they're just attracted to you. And, I was able to, sit down with ownerships of different teams, executives from different industries. And as I started to spend more time, again, one of my buddies, he has a great fund of funds, and he also has relationships. He would take us on these venture tours in LA and San Francisco. And this is 2013, 2014. And I was just amazed with the amount of energy and the amount of intelligence and the concentration of it all in, just these two cities. And I had spent time in LA. I just was, it's just super entertainment that you don't really think is super techie. So I and I hadn't spent much time in San Francisco and the Bay Area, but once I seen it, I was like, oh, I need to talk to this person. I need to talk to my buddy more. I need to understand it and just keep asking questions. I am super inquisitive about everything until I really build my own thought process. And then I start to read and research. And I think that was just that's always been my process in life. I'm always going to want to learn, always going to want to grow, because I never know. I'm not the smartest person in the room, and I never want to be. And that was just my humility. So I got really close with a bunch of the Steeler owners and executives who are in private equity and kind of direct investment, co-investment, and kind of hung out with them, played golf with them, and build the friendships. And they would give me little tools and little nuggets and little wisdom points here and there. And it was still a part of the learning process. So if I got a deal, I would send it to them, and I would talk to their CFOs, and I would talk to them, and they would say, nope, the EBITDA isn't this, or the margins isn't this, or I'm like, okay, or this is an early stage company, this is the competition, and you shouldn't do that. And I was just like, okay. These are just things I hadn't built my process yet. I just understood certain things. So talking to them and seeing their years of experience being spewed to me helped me develop a process. So that's kind of, it was really cool that they opened the door and, just allowed me to kind of walk in. So it was pretty cool. Pretty good. And they're still great friends today. So
you've got this toolkit that you've built, and it sounds like there's probably some similarities to your career as a professional athlete, where over your career you kind of pick up little things and every day you're kind of building. But at what point did you go from kind of a deal by deal basis as an individual to really formalizing more of an investment structure?
It's always been a deal by deal, but I think I overlapped my personal investment structure. You develop it over time. I think either, because I kind of looked at myself as a family office, using my own capital or syndicating deals with other athletes or other individuals, high net worth individuals, and saying, let's go do X, Y, and Z, or listening to them and gleaning from them, and we're coming together and making our own decisions. And I think what formalized more institutional was, spending more time with institutional investors and understanding that process, because it's much different than quote unquote family office angel investing. So, but I got to learn, I got to cut my teeth that way. And I got to understand my investment philosophy and what I like and what I don't like. And, that's just my education. Some people go work and be an analyst or associate somewhere, and that's great too. And I thought about that. Should I go work somewhere for a year or for 3 or 4 months in the summer and start from ground zero and just kind of build this kind of foundation. And I said, well, I don't really need to do that. I can do that on my own. And I got great teachers that can help me along the way. So that was just the way I decided to go about doing it. And I contemplated all options. But this was the best option for me because I still was in the thick of playing sports, and I didn't have that much time to go work somewhere for 6 months or a year. So I had limitations, and I knew if the day I finished football, that I would be behind, right? I knew because I started like I'm year 7, year 8, year 9, year 10. I'm approaching 30-something years old. You got 22-year-olds that are just 23-year-olds, 24, 25-year-olds that are just rising up the corporate ladder. And I just said, hey, I want to start just above that. And that was just my mentality because I already had done the work, already had started investing. And that was it. But there's nothing wrong with education. I actually got my MBA, during this whole like crisis and pandemic. Started in 2018, finished in 2020. And, it's just something that I wanted to do for myself. So I think there's pros and cons to, starting at a shop and working your way and then going to do your own thing versus just going to do your own thing. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, one of my mentors would always tell me, he was like, and this is before I became an investor, I would say, I want to be a VC, like what should I be doing? And he was like, Jay, if you want to be an investor, invest. Like that's how you're going to learn, right? At the end of the day, you can shadow somebody, but the time that you learn the best is when you actually have the conviction to put your money forward, and whatever the lessons you learn from it, however big or small that check is, and ideally it should be a little bit smaller than bigger, right? You're going to learn those lessons and you're going to get better as you go along. So I totally agree with that piece of it.
You got to swing the bat, man. You got to swing the bat.
You got to get the looks at least, right? You got to get the at-bats even before you swing just to see, like, hey, what's the pitch look like? And so I would love to understand taking sort of all the lessons that you've had, as an investor from learning from the folks that you've shadowed and mentored with. Talk to us about Magarac, the thesis. How did that all come together, and why this was the right time for a fund like this?
Right. So I guess along the journey, I started investing here in Pittsburgh. We got some great research institutions, University of Pittsburgh, Carnegie Mellon, Robert Morris is starting to come. Like they're big esports. People don't really know that, but it's. I looked at my surroundings and I said, well, I may not have the deep concentration as the Bay Area or in Boston, but how can I take advantage of what's happening here? And I just started to build relationships with the institutional investors that were here, that been around for a while, and started to share deal flow. Because once you write the first check, your name starts buzzing around and people start calling you, reaching out to you on LinkedIn, in your DMs on Instagram, and you don't even know who the hell they are or what the heck is going on. But it was just a good way to see kind of the activity, then compare it to deal flow outside of Pittsburgh and say, well, how do I look at the technical expertise? How do I look at the best, what are the best deals? What are the best market opportunities? And what's coming out of these research institutions? And that's kind of how I got started. And so with Magarac, there was a group, Draper Triangle Ventures. Tim Draper started this. This was his first satellite office in Pittsburgh ever, and it was 1999. So you talk about 20 years ago. And the guys that started it they were co-founders. One guy, Don Jones, is like a historian, like great legendary Pittsburgh investor. He was an engineer by trade, and he exited a few businesses. And Tim Draper reached out to him and said, hey, let's build this fund as my first satellite office. You got the engineering expertise. You got a direct connect to Carnegie Mellon. Let's build this thesis out. And that's kind of how those guys started. And they had been working for like 20 years, and I got to not Don. I didn't get to meet Don. Don passed away in 2015, I believe. But Jay Katarinzik, Mike Stubler had been with Don from the very beginning. And we kind of met, talked a little bit here and there. We shared a little bit of deal flow. I talked to other institutional investors here, talked to other institutional investors in other cities. But what resonated to me the most with Magarac, and I'll get to those guys we build a relationship, and they say, hey, Will, we think we want to change the brand. We want to change the name. We want to change the culture. We haven't done X, Y, and Z the way we could, and we think you would be a great asset in helping us catalyze this thesis around Pittsburgh and the Midwest. We've raised over $200 million, so in our funds. We're one of the largest investors in the Midwest. But we think we can expand. We think we can do more. What does this sound like to you? And I just looked at it as a great opportunity to do work here, to invest in companies here and invest in companies in the Midwest where there's a lot of need and demand for capital. And and there's a lot of great engineering talent here, a lot of great universities, a lot of great supply chains and corporates that exist, but they get overlooked or flown over because you want to go where the concentration is, and where these utilities are easily accessible. And that's one thing that I want to transform, and that's what a part of our thesis is, having utility easily accessible in the Midwest, and which hasn't existed. And we can do that here. And that's what I'm excited about. And so when they told me this, a couple years ago, I said, oh yeah, let's get to know each other first, even deeper. Like, we're surface, I know you guys, we share some deal flow, but I want to know who you are. Your character and your integrity means a lot to me. Because I can I can go back to football if I wanted to. I can go to another shop if I wanted to. Like, let's really get a concrete level set. And that's what we did. And we learned to like each other, and learn that we have differences and similarities, but at the end of the day, we want to see change in the Midwest for entrepreneurs and support them, and then find the next billion-dollar companies here, because they do exist and they are growing rapidly. So that is kind of like how we all formed and came together. So it's exciting. It is. It's really exciting.
That's one of the things that people, I think, really miss about Pittsburgh is that there is the concentration of talent. I think everybody thinks about San Francisco, New York, obviously. And as a Carnegie Mellon grad, I'm obviously going to beat my chest about that a little bit. But I mean, AI, robotics, like I remember going back to 2009 when I was there, and they were showing us self-driving cars in the parking lot of Hammerschlag Hall. That's a decade ago. And now
and then Uber bought that entire department.
And then Uber bought that entire department. Still a sore subject. But that said, right? Like, over a decade, there has been evolution in AI and ML in just that one city, and now every single one of these big tech, has a hub there. And so I think I want to highlight that point, because I think people don't give Pittsburgh the credit for being the robotics, AI, and ML hub that it really is.
Yeah, I mean, also med tech, life sciences is big here. It's not as big as Boston, obviously, but a lot of the talent goes to Boston. They just do, because they can get capital, and again, you have the utility and services and people and ecosystem to help catalyze and scale. And those are kind of the missing components that we need here. And I think that is what Magarac is seeking to do, is to just hone in on all those pieces to come together. So
and you're starting to touch on what I want to ask a little bit, because Jay mentioned his soft spot for Pittsburgh. I grew up in Milwaukee, so we both see that potential, untapped potential in the Midwest, and it's great. Sounds like Magarac are being active and trying to exploit that kind of underserved market of talent. But help us understand the thesis a little bit more in terms of any type of sector or stage focus with the fund.
Yeah, so we'll start with stage. The stage is, I would say, kind of like ideation, seed to pre-seed, maybe no revenue, trying to figure out, taking this idea to, building a team and going from there. So we'll write checks to do that, because in the past Draper hadn't done that. They were more serious, lean in on Series A. So, some customers trying to get product market fit, that's kind of where they concentrated the most. They did do some, kind of earlier stage investing, but not enough. So they missed out on a lot of deals that way, right? So we'll still do like that Series A, kind of product market fit investing, and then we'll also do follow-on kind of growth stage. So we're looking to write checks between 500,000 up to 5 million, right? Just kind of a range across that, and I would say that the industries we like the most are obviously the anchor industries that exist here in Pittsburgh. The AI, autonomy, B2B type companies, enterprise companies, also the kind of life sciences, med tech, devices. But I'm really interested in like the metaverse industry and where that's going, like AR, VR. I'm looking for the next, Jarvis and Tony Stark. Like that's kind of what I want. Like I want to be able to speak it. Like, we're at this stage now, and this is, to me, is a 2D. This is a 2D form right now. How do we get to the 3D form where I don't even need this, and I can just walk into a space and speak, and things will pop up, right? Whether it's IoT devices or whether it's, I can wear some form of a wearable that does that for me. And I think we're there. Or even like when you think about the immersion of these spaces in gaming that people have created already, and what Unity is doing to create those engines. I think we're about five years away from finding how the strong use cases and form factors of where the hardware, software, and costs come together, right? So finding that nexus, I'm really excited about that. We got some really exciting opportunities here in Pittsburgh and people don't know about. I'm gonna dive in on that. So it's I'm excited about that. And also cyber, right? Cybersecurity. There was $1 trillion of fraud that happened in 2020. And we got to figure out a way to protect all these devices, all of our emails, all of our enterprise engagements. Like there has to be some really strong solutions upcoming, because we're just going to get smarter, and technology will just keep advancing, and we have to protect it and protect people. I mean, you looked at Sequoia just had a breach, Facebook had a breach recently. All these different entities have breaches, and people are steadily trying to hack it. So I'm trying to hire the best hackers and the best engineers to reverse it, right? Like, let's protect it. Let's build a protection around it. And I don't think that's anything new. I think people have always thought about that. But when you got one of the most prolific venture firms getting hacked, they could have easily had some type of, barrier, roadblock, security system up, integrated into their business practice. So that says a lot about how intelligent these hackers are and how they try to attack people. So, Sequoia got $5 trillion in market cap invested right now, like, and it's probably just going to keep increasing. They should have a protocol. I'm not trying to bash Sequoia. I'm just speaking of what's happening in the market, and we got to keep our eye on that and think about the future. So those are kind of two industries that I want to dig deeper in. But like I said, the anchor industry is around autonomous driving vehicles, med tech, robotics, AI. I mean, AI is in the industry. It's a way to enable more intelligence. So, how you integrate that across multiple industries is something that we think about. I hope that helps.
Yeah, and I guess the sort of follow on from that, which a lot of investors that have maybe looked at deals in the Midwest typically will pass on it, is because they think the concentration of talent isn't there, right? And I don't just mean talent from the hard technology side, but also, when you're scaling up quickly, are you able to hire local talent? One of the things that we've seen in 2020 is that no longer mattered, because everybody was hiring and working with talent over Zoom. So what is your philosophy as you look at how these companies are built? Do they need to be co-located? Can they be fully distributed? Is there something that you've thought about in terms of how teams are built with Magarac?
You definitely need to be close to customers. You definitely need to be close to supply chains, and you definitely need to be close to non technical talent. I think, or at least be able to attract it. I think that's the biggest thing. You see what happened in Miami. Miami is a vacation spot, and all the talent just decided to go there because they opened up the opportunities for whatever reason. And Austin the same way. Austin was just a hippie, cool place to go. And like over the last 20 years, it's created into a tech hub. But all the talent has gone there. So it's a combination of the state regulatory policies. It's a combination of how capital moves in that city, corporates being involved, for beta customers and talent that are more used to being corporate centric and not early stage centric. So having a combination of both and changing that psychological approach, which I think we can do because we have talent at, a lot of these corporates, they just work at corporates. They don't work at startups. And I think just changing that a little bit and making it known that this is an opportunity will be huge. We got some really, really great companies here, and within not even just Pittsburgh, but you go across the Midwest, you'll find all different, Fortune 500s, Fortune 100s, within a 3-hour, 5-hour drive. You know what I mean? It's so you have the concentration is just kind of spread out, and you got to know how to attract it and utilize it. And I think that's where our network and people we know will come in. But it's a challenge. Don't get me wrong. I'm making it sound like it's easy. It's not. So, we're long-term thinkers. So over the next 10 to 20 years, how do we, attract more talent and keep more talent within the region in concentrated cities, Detroit, Cleveland, Columbus, Pittsburgh, Milwaukee, Chicago, obviously, Kansas City, St. Louis, like all these different places where Indianapolis, these are all going to be strong, I believe, tech epicenters, and how we coalesce and build is yet to be seen and yet to be known. So, it's a big mission. It's a big mission, but I think we can do it.
So Will, bring it back to you a bit as we kind of move towards a close. What's the transition been like for you as you've been able to kind of fully sink your teeth in now on the investment side? But you're also working with the team, so there's new dynamics with that, and it's not the same as having teammates on the football field. It's a little bit different in an office environment. Take us through kind of the psychological and maybe even emotional change that's been for you.
It's a very good question. Thank you for asking that. I think for me, it's understanding the difference between portfolio construction and investment management. It's they're two different things, but they overlap. And being able to be a part of, the behind the scenes, like hardcore portfolio management is much different than managing investments. It just is. So I'm learning a lot of that, which is good. I want to, because I want to be good at, really good at understanding both sides, so you get a little bit of you get a little bit of pushback on, the way you manage and the way you think about deals, and which is good because I need that. But I also am able to give my value and expertise in what I've seen and what I've done, and all of the teammates are like, oh yeah, we didn't think of it that way. That's smart. Outside of investing in portfolio management. So I think you got to find that blend of who does what well, and be humble enough to learn from each other. I think that's the biggest thing, because I've been around the egos of the egos. I've been around folks who are alpha males, and they don't, I've seen it all, man. So for me, that is an unfair advantage that I have walking in rooms, and I know what I'm looking at and what I'm looking for, but also how to take a step back and listen and learn. So it's a pretty cool experience. It does get frustrating. You can't lie about it. It does. But that's personalities. Those are people, and the winning teams learn how to bring all the personalities together for one common goal. And that's to win a championship. And you gotta really help and support the entrepreneurs and be a good partner, helping them understand the winning culture, right? And I think that's the biggest piece that I want to bring to the table outside of the business acumen and helping companies with strategy is, how are you building your culture? How are you thinking about your people? How are you thinking about your customers, whether they be direct to consumer or whether it's enterprise? And how are you servicing them to show and display that you have a winning culture? I think a lot of times founders and entrepreneurs miss that because they just want to build and grow and scale fast. And I learned, even in sports, I got 4 months to make it to the playoffs. I got 16 games to make it to the playoffs, right? So I'm building very fast, just like, a company would. And I'm trying to go 12-4 or 11-5 to get a first round bye. And then the goal is not just to make it to the playoffs. The goal is to win the Super Bowl, right? That has to happen very fast. You got to get 100 people to believe in that very, very quickly. I've seen it. I've done it over and over and over again from a cultural perspective, from a people perspective. And those are, and I just want to, I think I don't know if anybody here read $1 Trillion Coach. That's a great book. Bill Campbell. He just brought his coaching expertise to the tech world, and I'm like, dude, this is like what? I mean, this is simple to me. Like, yeah. I'm like, and all these guys, Steve Jobs and all these, Google executives and founders, they all fell in love with him because they didn't understand the coaching and people aspect. They were just super technical. And I think once you realize how to blend the two, the art and the science of it, man, you build a beautiful, beautiful company. Now you don't always get it right, because as we've seen, like the New England Patriots, they would struggle a little bit this year without Tom Brady. They thought the machine just built itself, and no, it's about the people. So I really, that really resonates with me. And I played with one of the best franchises in all the sports. I played one of the best head coaches and owners, and I've been around some of the best athletes, man, that are super, super smart people that I glean information from just through my journey that I know I can help and pass to entrepreneurs, especially young entrepreneurs. So I'm excited about that side of the business.
Well, speaking of the culture piece, one of the things that I think Magarac has gotten a lot of notice for, and rightfully so, is this idea of the Rooney Rule for startups. And so for those of our listeners that, don't come from the black and yellow, don't know about the Rooney Rule, tell us a little bit about that and how you're trying to bring that aspect from the NFL into the startup world.
Yeah, well, the Rooney Rule was established to encourage more diverse head coaches, people of color, primarily African American, because they just weren't getting a shot. And majority of the NFL is African American, and it'll always be that way. And so you want representation and people that can resonate with you. But I think it was also to help reduce stigmas that existed, remove bias that existed, that black coaches weren't good enough, black quarterbacks weren't good enough. And I think that Dan Rooney stuck his neck out because his father, Big Chief, Art Rooney, recruited the first HBCUs in the 60s and 70s players, Hall of Famers that would have never been found, would have never existed. And he relied on Bill Nunn. And Bill Nunn went into the Hall of Fame this year. But the cool part about it is they were losing, they sucked, and he went to Bill Nunn because Bill Nunn's father was a part of this black newspaper called the Pittsburgh Courier. And he was like one of the first journalists and editors to create a HBCU All-American team. So he tapped into the local newspaper and said, hey, I need that black talent. Big Chief, he said, I need it on my team because we suck. And the minute they did that, they start winning Super Bowls. So here you go. Back in the 60s and 70s, they needed a way to win, and they went to go tap black talent that was untapped. Again, goes back to the people, goes back to the culture. And they implemented that and just kept rinse, water, repeat it, and really created a model for recruiting a black athlete. When 1968 was when Jim Crow kind of ended, and and here you are in the 70s, you win four, you go to four Super Bowls, 4 out of 6, you win 4. So it wasn't like a decade long until black athletes were really allowed to be in locker rooms, allowed to take showers, allowed to be in the same hotel rooms. And Mr. Rooney stuck his neck out. So Dan decided to say, hey, let's take it a step further. Let's get more representation because we've seen what the black athlete can do. So for us, it's more than just interviewing, because that's all it does. They say you at least need to interview. We want to make sure our founders and we support our entrepreneurs in hiring, right? because that's the key. Let's get the best. Don't say the talent doesn't exist. Let's aggregate the talent for you so you can really see between women, people with different sexual orientation, black and brown, doesn't matter. Like, because the business case, and we all know this, that the more diverse the team, the better their performance. And that's what we want, because we live in a very diverse world, and we know that that's the world that's going to keep coming, and and we can't ignore that, and we're not, and we want to support our entrepreneurs to make their teams diverse, primarily because the returns are going to be better, but also it makes the world better. So that is our mindset behind it. Not only just interviewing, but also hiring, hiring practices. So and we want to see, people from diverse backgrounds, get their windfall of capital. Be on those early stage companies. You get $1 billion, and now you're a multimillionaire, and you put in the work. So let's change that. Let's be a proponent of it, and not shy away. So we're excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I've never known the history behind the Rooney Rule and the HBCUs. That's awesome, and makes complete sense. I mean, you basically saw it across all sport. It's like you got to win. Like you're saying, in the startup world, the stats don't lie about the performance of diverse teams. So really critical with that. And so I'd love to end with a question we ask all our guests, more on the personal side for sure. But it sounded like you took a very measured path, and I was just really impressed by how you doubled down on getting smarter and going through the various educational programs. But what's a piece of advice you'd give your younger self, knowing all the things that you know now?
Start earlier. That's it. Start earlier. You got that unction, or you have that thought about doing something. Just do it. Start earlier. And don't be afraid. I think when I was young, I was a little timid, and I had trepidation that of not knowing. Just I think that's just what it is. But I would have tapped in a lot sooner, and maybe in the off season I would have traveled to California and worked at Kleiner, worked at Sequoia, worked at Andreessen, I did all those different things in every offseason just because I wanted to learn more about venture capital, and just expand my horizon and my mind, and not be so narrowly focused. I think once I went to Harvard and Kellogg, and I was around these minds, not just athletes, but it really just blew me away of everything I was missing from the time I was in college to the time I was 24, 25. I said, man, that's 5 years I missed. And then not truly taking advantage. Like every offseason, I should have been doing something related to what I learned in those halls from those entrepreneurs, and I decided, well, football is what I need to concentrate on. I need to do that's what I would tell Mars to start earlier and go get it,
Yeah, that is
I love that. Yeah, I love that. And, I think it's easy to get caught up with the idea that you can just show up and be in the Super Bowl one day, but the reality is it's the years and decades of process that got you there. And so the process on day one doesn't look like the Super Bowl. It's getting active, getting educated. And so you've made out pretty well for yourself, and it's exciting now to see the second act and what's going on. And we look forward to continuing to build our relationship as fellow investors with you. So Will Allen, thanks for joining Jay and I on the Game Plan.
Tim and Jay, this has been great. I really appreciate you having me. This is a lot of fun. I'm gonna be honest. This is probably the most fun I've had, doing something like this in a very, very long time. And I appreciate all of your perspectives and thoughts and questions. And I got a great deal of respect for both of you. So thank you so much. Next time I'll be interviewing both of you.
Sounds good.
We're here.
We're gonna flip it a little bit.
Let's do it. Well, let's do it. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.